Hey y'all, it's Leah from the Oppenheimer Ranch Project. Got a little Brahma chick in my hand at the moment. Hi, cutie. Well, maybe I shouldn't say so little, because these chicks are now a week and 3 days old, and they have gotten so much bigger in that time. It's just extraordinary how quickly they grow. All right, I'm going to put this guy back in here with his buddies. I should say her buddies. What am I saying? Go ahead. Bye. Let me turn the light off here so we can see a little bit better. My camera's not focusing very well. There we go. That's better. Okay, I just took a pause there to take the top off so that we can see a little bit better, although it's a little iffy at this point even to take the top off. These guys have gotten so big and they're so active that I can totally see one of these birds being able to fly out of the brooder right now, so hopefully that doesn't happen. As you can see, everybody's gotten a lot bigger, and everybody is a little jammed up on one side of the brooder at the moment, but they're starting to take up the space. And my original plan was to get a second brooder and split them up, but then I thought about it and realized that's not the greatest idea, because chickens develop a pecking order, and chicks do the same thing. And when I reintegrate them, they will just have to reestablish that pecking order all over again. So it's just an extra level of stress that isn't necessary. It's not the worst thing in the world to reintegrate birds. In fact, the easiest way to do it is, if they're in a coop, is to put the new birds to a coop. You put them in the coop at night, and you just sit them right on the perches. And generally speaking, when you do that for chickens, in the morning, for them, it's like as if they've always been together, as if these were always the buddies that they were sleeping together. So, in fact, we will, when we are ready to move these guys into a brooder, we will do the same thing. It just lessens the stress if it's nighttime and dark. And then you just kind of place them on the perches at night, and it's a lot less stressful than throwing them into a new environment in the middle of the day. The dark really has a big impact on them. Yeah, so like I said, I was planning on splitting these chicks up into 2 brooders, but I went to the farm store yesterday, and not only do they not have a brooder this size, they have one that's bigger, and they have other brooders that are smaller, but it would make more sense to have them all stay in a brooder together. So I am actually going to buy a much bigger brooder that is 8 feet long instead of this one's about 6 feet. And it's an extra foot wide as well, and hopefully that will be enough space for the longer term. They'll be in this brooder for about 8 weeks total, and if for some reason that's really not enough space, well, then I have the second brooder. To fall back on if need be, which of course would involve splitting up the flock again, which I don't want to do. I'd rather avoid, but it's an option. Let's see. In any case, yes, everybody's gotten much bigger. You can see we have all of these wing feathers out. Most of the birds, but not all, have tail feathers that have started. The Rhode Island Reds seem to have been first on tail feathers. Oh, here's somebody with pretty long tail feathers right now. This little bird right there going off screen, but you can't really see her now. Yeah, they're growing so fast, and they're definitely going to need more room. By the way, I wanted to point out that, as you can see, I'm interrupting myself. As you can see, these feeders are being used as perches, which is not ideal because it means they're going to poop in the food, but there's only so much you can do about it, and just hope that it's kind of limited and clean out the poop when it's there. I put these sticks in here for everybody to practice perching on. They don't actually use them that much. They use them a little. But that's similar to what they'll be perching on at night when they go to sleep in the coop. Plus it gives them some little microbes, some extra microbes from outside to gain some immunity too. So I was going to say that I just wanted to point out, and I think I've pointed this out in previous chicken videos, but this book here, this is Story's Guide to Raising Chickens, written by Gail Demeraux. I'm totally plugging this. I'm certainly not getting paid for that in any way, shape, or form, but I will say that this book is the bee's knees when it comes to raising chickens. This book covers just about everything you need to know. And I have on occasion learned the hard way that Gail Demeraux, who in my opinion is the queen of backyard poultry, whenever I haven't followed her advice, I usually found out later that she was absolutely correct. So, I mean, this covers everything from managing your flock to chick care to culling birds, whether for food or because of disease. She does a really good job as well of covering both sides of any particular issue that might be a little contentious, such as vaccines for chickens, stuff like that. I think she gives it pretty even treatment, but she also, for the most part, gives her opinion, let's say, about what she would do. She has another book that's really excellent called The Chicken Health Handbook that is just wonderful. It's a great book for diagnosing any chicken diseases. I've even found that the drawings in it, which are often just drawings of chickens in the state that they're in when they're sick, they're so well drawn that the artists seem to have captured something specific about certain illnesses that have frankly allowed me to diagnose a few things that I might not have otherwise been able to determine. Anyway, yeah, like I said, Gail Demeraux, awesome chicken raising guide, and I highly recommend that book for anybody who is raising chickens. It really answers any questions you could possibly want to know. Let's see, what else have I not covered yet? So I mentioned that these guys are a week and 3 days old. It is Saturday, October 9th, and next Wednesday they will be 2 weeks old, at which point I'm going to begin to give them chick grit. So you may or may not know that chickens eat rocks because those rocks stay in their gizzard and it allows them to grind up the food that they're eating. And chicks also need to do this. And so they make a very tiny, let me get a better image of this, a very tiny version. These are little teeny tiny rocks. And they eat those and they go into the gizzard and it helps them crush up their food. So you can get this in a farm store, and when you get it for adult chickens, they're bigger pieces of granite. Usually the stuff I get is like a purple granite. Doesn't really matter. But so, yeah, in about 4 days I'm going to start giving them this. So that's pretty important. You may have noticed that my drinker setup is a little different now. In this drinker over here, I still have electrolytes in there. I figure it can't hurt. Nobody's sick and everybody's doing real well right now, but, you know, some extra vitamins and whatnot in there, so they have that option. And then I have a bigger 1 gallon drinker in the middle. I like this drinker. It's called the Little Giant. I bought it on Amazon several years ago. It doesn't take up a lot of space. It has a shape that I think works well in a brooder. It doesn't need to hang, so I don't need a hanger on it. And I switched to this drinker for a couple of reasons. One, it actually sort of effectively saves some space in here. Two, because the sides of the tray are a little bit higher. This is one of the challenges in a brooder, is that the chicks are constantly kicking up litter because they're scratching around in it as their normal tendency to do. And then that tends to end up in the trays, which sucks because you get a little poop in there. There's not, you know, raising the drinkers is absolutely necessary to reduce the amount of litter that ends up in the drinkers, but you can't prevent all of it. I just dumped these trays, so looks pretty clean at the moment. But I've been finding that I have to dump these trays at least once during the day. So every day I clean the drinkers and I disinfect them. I usually end up dumping the tray at least one more time during the day, if not twice. And often I just sanitize the tray at the same time. Got somebody eating out of the top of this feeder here. I like these little green feeders. I don't even remember where I got these. They're so cheap and so flimsy, but I love them because they're a shape that is very stable in the brooder, as well as, hang on, let me get another one of the other chick feeders to show you by comparison about why I like these versus others. Okay, so there's these feeders. These are just like the little drinkers, but with a different base in them. I mean, these are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not quite as stable as the green ones, you know, just based on the shape. I mean, they're fine. The main reason why I like them less is that there's only 8 feeding holes on this one. So you just have fewer chicks that are able to get around it. The green ones actually have, I think, about 16 little sections. So you just, and plus it's has a greater, a wider diameter, so you can, and circumference, so more chicks can fit around it, just because it has that slightly wider base. So I kind of prefer those green ones over this style. And then there's also these long feeders. I mean, these are fine too. Obviously you can get a lot of chicks around this. I think this is 22 holes. So a lot of everybody else gets a chance to eat. I'm not crazy about them though. These do come in plastic also. The galvanized metal ones are a little sharp, which is okay. But like on the first day when I first got the chicks here, a chick actually walked up this center here and got stuck, and I had to kind of gently push her out and back her up till she got out. I mean, I don't think that happens very often. That's the first time that's happened to me. But obviously that's a little bit of an issue for real tiny chicks. And the other reason why I don't like these is that they tend to want to perch on the top. It's a perfect perch. So they sit up there and then they poop in the food. I mean, obviously they're, you know, perching on these green feeders is a little too, but you can only get like one bird up there. So these are just not my favorite. I mean, they're great in terms of the number of birds you can get around them, but I don't love them. So yeah, I like these green ones. They're super cheap. Like I said, they're super flimsy, but the shape is perfect and the flimsiness doesn't impact their functionality. So I'm actually going to buy more of those because I really think they're the best in the brooder. Let's see, what else? I did lower the temperature after the first week. Actually, I was lowering the temperature prior to that. I started out at about 95 degrees, and especially after a couple of days, you got to watch your birds. I mentioned this before. You know, if they're all huddling up somewhere under the heat, then they're too cold. If they're kind of gravitating out to the edges or cooler spots, you might want to consider that they might be too cold. Also, if you notice any of your chicks with their mouths open, they're panting a little bit and they're trying to release heat through their mouths. So after, I don't know, maybe 4 days or so, I started noticing a good handful of chicks that were panting. So I lowered the temperature, and I was keeping it at kind of around 90 or a little bit above 90. And then week 1 came where I would normally drop the temperature 5 degrees. And so what I did is I actually just stopped turning on this middle heat lamp, and I left well, this one isn't on at the moment, but I left the other 2 on, and I lowered them. And that gave me a temperature of almost 85. At night, it would actually get down, it gets a little cold in this garage, so at night it would get down to like 81, but everybody appeared to be completely comfortable. So I'm fine with that. If the chicks are comfortable, then that's what you need. Going exactly by the book, you know, 5 degrees is not really the answer. It's a good guide, but you gotta look at your chicks. So in another 4 days or so, I'll drop the temperature another 5 degrees and see how we do and see if everybody's comfortable. Everybody's getting ready for a nap right now. So they'll do this while they're sleeping. They will kind of squish up against each other. You do want to watch this if it's too cold. If they're piling on each other too hard, either because of cold or stress, there's the possibility of them smothering each other, and you don't want that. What else did I do? Oh, I am now adding into the drinker, I'm adding in apple cider vinegar with the mother. Just like a tablespoon per gallon. And the reason for that is it gives them some probiotics. And it helps with their immunity, just like it does for us. So I'm including that in there. And let's see, what else? I don't know, I think that's about it right now. One thing I didn't note before that maybe I should have, I mean, I've said a lot, I talked a lot about how you want to reduce the stress as much as possible. You can't eliminate it completely. And that is sort of the nature of being a chicken. It is kind of a stressful life because you're a prey animal, to be frank. And that's sort of how it rolls. But reducing their stress as much as possible really gives them the healthiest life. So one, I really try to do my best to move slowly around the chicks. I mean, no matter what I do, whenever I go in the brooder, there's a little bit of scrambling. But the slower I move, the better that it is. And another thing, when you pick up chicks, if you can help it, you can try to pick them up from the front. That way they can see you coming. And let me see if I can demonstrate. Yeah. Oop. Oop. This just makes it a little bit better. This is a little Rhode Island Red. Wow, look at the length on her tail feathers. I don't know why, but the Rhode Island Reds really got their tail feathers sooner. You see these little shoulder feathers are coming in now too. Those wing feathers are long. She's losing her down. What a pretty little lady. You're cute. Of course you're cute. They're all cute. I did, by the way, lose one more chick. And while, losing chicks is, to some degree, is normal, I found myself very upset about that particular chick. I think I just thought that we were really done with that stage. And I don't actually know what the problem was, which also bothers me. It seemed kind of sudden. Suddenly I found a chick who was sleeping in the litter and was actually kind of like half buried in it. And clearly, was just exhausted, could barely open his eyes. It was one of my Plymouth Barred Rock roosters. And I just let him rest, and a few hours later he passed. It was probably coccidiosis. I would imagine that he just got an extra dose of the protozoa and hadn't developed enough immunity yet. And so that's a little sad. And it made me kind of feel like a bad mommy, but it is what it is, and it's going to happen. So, hopefully that's it on this bunch. And otherwise, everybody is very active and happy and healthy and sleeping when they need to. And I'm going to turn this light on over here because maybe it's getting a little chilly. But this is the nap corner. I don't know why, but this corner, everybody likes to take a nap in this corner. It's pretty sweet. I'm an insomniac. I've been an insomniac for 20 years. Not a great way to live, but it is what it is. And sometimes I wake up at, 4:30 in the morning, and sometimes I'll just come check on these guys. It's kind of relaxing to just watch them. And sometimes at that hour, everybody's asleep in a pile, just snoozing, and it's awful cute. All right, well, we will check in again soon. And by that point, these guys will be in a bigger brooder, and they'll have a little more space to stretch their legs and continue growing up and getting bigger and bigger. All right, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and take care.